Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 3 and episode number 299 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Wednesday, January 17th for rebroadcast on Friday, January 19th. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him. And hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We have a very special show for you today. We have some guests for you. It's going to be a little heavier than our usual fare. But before we do anything else, the most important thing we do on our show every morning here at the Beaver Lodge is say hello to you, Mr. Grizzly, and ask, how is your mental health doing today, sir?
Well, hey, Mr. Beaver. I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Here's the thing. We're recording on a Wednesday evening. I just got in the door from the office, which is why I'm still wearing this morning's clothing, because I just got home. And I'm still thawing out. It's not mind-numbingly cold out. It's only about minus 17, minus 18, which is not outrageous. But the problem with that is right now, the humidity is at 56%, which is lower than often. But this morning it was at about 78. And when I stepped outside, I made about 4 steps out the front door and went, damn it, I don't have time to go back up and put some long johns on or grab my balaclava. I'm late. I gotta get into the office. By the time I got there, I was frozen. And I found it was cold in the office all day, so I was wearing my toque and my jacket most of the day in the building. My sheepskin jacket, the one that's rated till minus 200 or whatever. And so I froze coming home. I'm having a hot chocolate in my Sens mug because I need to warm up. And I'm not having coffee at this hour because I want to sleep eventually, right? And I've not been sleeping well. Let's not do damage to oneself. Let's just have that hot chocolate, which will put me in that mellow, warm mood that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Hot chocolate, the official drink of the Eager Beaver.
Yeah, well, I know this. I only have it really in January and February. That's it. It's the only time I drink it, and it's usually on the canal. But the canal's not open yet, and it's really cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing. It's only minus 7 base temperature here, but like 62% humidity.
Yeah,
and
so
because of the lake.
Yeah, you're really feeling it.
Right through the body today.
Yeah. Now from here to just below my nether region, warm as could be because I had my sheepskin coat on. You don't feel anything. No cold, no dampness, no nothing. That's the wonderful thing about sheepskin and wool. It really does regulate your body heat better than anything. Mm-hmm. But because I wasn't wearing long johns and I didn't have a balaclava on, my face was frozen and my legs from the knees down.
Me, it was feet and hands. Even though they had gloves on, it was like, gloves. Mother Nature was
Well,
laughing at me.
my gloves, I bought them a couple of years ago, and they were only about $40, so not expensive, but not cheap, but not expensive. Goat skinned, but they're cashmere lined. And cashmere is 30% warmer than wool.
Mhm.
A thin layer of cashmere under leather, you're great to really cold temperatures. The
Mhm.
dampness, by the time I get home, I could start to feel it a little bit in my fingers, but they're the warmest leather gloves I've ever owned.
Mhm. Now, Kits, if you are wondering why it is we're pre-recording, it's because at the time that you are watching this, I am still in Montreal because last night I was at church paying my respects
Madonna.
to Lady Madonna, Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception,
She's playing at
and
the Centre Bell, eh?
the Centre Belle, yes. And I'm going to,
Is it one night or 2 nights that she's there?
I think she's there 2 nights,
Yeah,
and I'm going to assume that it was fabulous
I expect
and
it.
that I'm a very happy beaver this morning. But this morning, we are here to talk about something serious.
It's
As I
heavy.
say every now and then on the show, normally we do things that are more lighthearted, but we always like it when we have an opportunity to do something meaningful and serious. And today that is going to be the case. Kits, if we don't have our normal humor and our normal jocularity, don't worry. We're okay. It's just that we need to treat this subject with the seriousness that it deserves and that it warrants. We have 2 guests for you today who are going to come and talk about the best thing I could say about probably the biggest and most painful loss
Mm.
that anybody can experience. So, without any further ado, let's just bring them in. Mr. Gisley.
Oops.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. I will allow you to introduce yourselves to the Kits and Cubs today.
My name is Angela Voss, but I prefer to be called Jordan's mom in light of what we're going to talk about tonight.
All right.
And I'm Leanne Schaefer, and I am, she's one of my besties.
All right. And I think Kits and Cubs, you might get a sense of where it is that we're going, given
Some
that
of
we're
you
talking
may
to
know
Jordan's
her.
mom. We're going to ask the first, we talked to Angela and Leanne beforehand. So please, we want to let you know this because we're going to start with Leanne and not Angela at their request. Leanne, why is it that you brought this particular story to our attention and what is your involvement with it?
This is hard. You don't understand what it's like to lose a child until you. I can't even be in a shoe. I have tons of empathy. I do lots of what is it that I do? I do advocacy work, tons of it, and you can be very empathetic. But this is not even the same. So
Mhm.
when I met her and hearing the story about what happened with Jordan, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Just for future reference, I don't think my child would watch it, but we've had some pretty severe issues with some things with my kids a couple of years ago. And it's within the same relation of Jordan, not obviously not as bad.
Mhm.
And you don't, that feeling that you get when you stand beside somebody and they're speaking into a microphone, because we did a rally a couple months ago, and the feeling that just comes and it grips you, like it hurts your soul that her baby's gone,
Mm.
like he's never coming back, and it was preventable, and it should never have happened. And Jordan's birthday is also coming up. January 31st would be
26.
26.
It's 20
Mm.
old is what he would be, but it's 26 forever.
And because I'd watch your show every day and it's politically important to me and whatever, I was just very, very much hoping that it's a platform that's very hard to talk about. It's
Mhm.
something that other people find it hard to talk about. They also, some people turn their heads because of the situation. And it's, I don't know, it hurts families, it hurts friends, it hurts a lot of things because of the reasons why and so forth, which I'll obviously let her talk. So I don't know. Jordan, justice for Jordan. And also, I'll just quickly preempt that is that we watched the Solomon Security case for 3 weeks. That was a live inquiry for Ontario. And I was floored, like absolutely floored in what happened to him. And Angela we will have an inquiry. So we will have 3 weeks of watching. I can't. You can.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. We understand. It's an incredibly difficult topic to discuss, and it was preventable.
Yeah.
So, Angela, if you want to, please enlighten us for those who don't know.
So, Jordan did struggle with substance use disorder mental health disorder. He had gone in and out of psychiatrists, groups, different things that we could get him into, but eventually Jordan's life ended up leading him into the correctional system.
Mm-hmm.
And from the beginning of the correctional system, it started to destroy his life and bring him down more and his mental health was becoming more uncontrollable. And Jordan found condolence and safety, security. I'm not really sure what he found in the drugs, but it helped him escape the things that he was struggling within his brain. We consider that self-medicating. Jordan did have an extremely bad overdose. I saved his life in the middle of the night. He had died multiple times for more than 20 minutes and was in a coma. And we rehabilitated him. I actually spent 3 months at the hospital with Jordan. I never left except for the shower. So he got all of my caregiving skills. I showered him, took care of him. I stood by his side. When we asked him about rehabilitation and treatment at that point in time, he was like, "Mom, are you crazy after everything I've just been through?"
Right.
But then catastrophic things happen in life, and his girlfriend had died just after Jordan was talking to her. And he suffered and struggled and cried. When Jordan's heart shattered, it didn't break like ours do. Like it shattered. Like this, it was unbelievable amount of shattered. And he eventually started to try to use again and would overdose and get beaten up by friends, his stuff stolen, and he would come back to Mom, and I'd just say, "If you're ready to come home, please come home." But in our home, you can have safe supply, but you can't be using in our home. You have 2 younger brothers. We really need to protect that.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come home and he would do well, and he'd get pulled back into all these networks that were close to us and to the environment of what he was being pulled back into on a continuum with friends. So he went and stayed with his dad, which lived in Markham, Stouffville, and was sober. He was doing very good. He wasn't on any safe supply or anything like that. And one day his dad said, "Well, I want my stereo back." And he forced Jordan to say where the stereo was. Jordan refused to go, but his dad went anyways to this drug house to try to retain a 25-year-old stereo that was very important to him at that point in time. He brought the stereo home, and inside the stereo was a gun.
Oh.
And Jordan, being mentally challenged as he was, he didn't want his friends to be in trouble. So he tried to take the gun and hide it. Remember, Jordan is mentally disabled. He's just come through a catastrophic brain injury. And he made that decision to take it and try to hide it from his dad. And when the cops came to get the gun, and Jordan surrendered it. But they charged Jordan with it. And that's where his nightmare began, because then he was on house arrest and under his dad's foothold. And he wasn't very nice to Jordan. There was constant fights between the two of them. He would tell Jordan he had to be better, do more. Jordan had a brain injury. He could only do so much. But his dad was very evil to him and had wrote him some extremely nasty letters. And Jordan decided, after his new girlfriend and him broke up, that he was going to relapse. And this was COVID. So all of his services, treatments, everything that Jordan was using to help him through these moments was gone. Absolutely gone. Even for the visit, Jordan was difficult because it was COVID. You're not supposed to travel. You're not supposed to do things. And when he relapsed, of course, we wanted to save Jordan. We didn't want him relapsing and going back into this position where he's going to die. And Jordan, because we would take the drugs from him, had developed a behavior of putting the drugs in his bowels. And that was after the brain injury. So we told the psychiatrist that this had happened in the past and that I knew Jordan had been deposited $5,000 from CERB that he should not have received, but he did. And he spent that on drugs. So I knew the amount of drugs that he had on him was significant. In reference to those who might not know, it would be about a golf ball size amount, which is a lot, especially when you're talking about fentanyl and benzophosphonates and a mixture, a concoction of drugs that was absolutely toxic. Jordan was in the hospital for 72 hours. They refused to look at him medically and kept saying that they couldn't do anything for us unless Jordan decided at that moment that he would go to treatment, but there was no treatment available. So his father decided that he was going to pull his bail and send him into the correctional center because, as the doctor directed, that would probably be the best place for them to deal with this type of problem. And we never got to see Jordan again. We never got to talk to him. He pulled bail, and I got a phone call on the Monday night from a very rude doctor saying, "Your son is dead." And I said, "Well, I'm coming." And he said, "No, you cannot come. The hospital is closed because of COVID." And then a couple minutes later, I got a call from an investigating officer. And it was absolutely a call for help. We couldn't bring Jordan home because of the amount of drugs. And we're only people. I've saved Jordan's life so many times. And I can't tell you what it's like to smash your own child's ribs. And to live with that. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't be awake 24 hours. It really needed help.
And there was no one.
And there was no one. And then he gets to jail. And they tell me all these stories about how he died. And then I get the autopsy report, and it's completely different. Jordan had suffered the entire time he was there. He had gone to the hospital once with an overdose. He was still acting erratically and crazy. I don't know if I've explained this, but Jordan didn't use drugs to sedate himself. Jordan's reactions to the drugs that he used, he would beat himself, catastrophically beat himself. And it was horrible. Like his head would be so swollen from beating himself from this brain injury that he had. And we just really needed help. He really needed help with what was going on. And everywhere we screamed didn't help. when the autopsy report came in and I found out Jordan had been to the hospital, and the nurse's notes said that Jordan shouldn't be released back to Central East Correctional Center, but he was, where he sat for many hours unattended in the admitting and discharge unit, which is absolutely terrible. I didn't know what that looked like until Yusuf Fakiri's inquest. So the thought of my sick child being in that room with those people,
The way that they treat,
it's just awful. So then they finally transfer him in the morning, on the Monday morning, to a medical unit where Jordan was no longer verbal, but he was pushing at his bowels, and they could see that he was trying to dig at something with the blanket, but all the scanning results had come back that it was negative, or that the guard did not know how to use them because they were positive on secondary review.
that he was like,
But that he had the drugs on him, but that nobody knew how to read the scanner through it that weekend that he was admitted. So as a mom, telling them that he's got this on him looked crazy because somebody didn't know how to read a scanner. So, yeah, so we went through a lot. And now to see how this admitting and discharge room was, taken to the medical unit where he's now nonverbal, can barely walk. And he's now fighting them because they're telling him he's going to get a shot of gravel. And I don't know if one of the most toxic things you can do for somebody in a fentanyl overdose is give them gravel. Because that's why I found Jordan at 4:00 in the morning. Originally, was because I gave him gravel. So he knew he had already spent time in a coma in the hospital because I had given him gravel to settle him down because I didn't know what to do and nobody would help. And then he's in a hospital or in the jail. He can't talk. And they're now bullying him, holding him down, and giving him an injection that my son knew was going to kill him.
but he could talk.
But he couldn't talk. And he laid there naked on a cold concrete floor until he died. And then when he's had no vitals, they finally go in and try to do something. The paramedics said that he arrived at the hospital and he was alive, but the doctor said he was dead. So I don't even know what's true. I don't know how many more details I'm going to find out of this inquest. I've learned from Yusuf's inquest that I only know
Probably
a very fraction of what's really transpired for Jordan. It's been extraordinarily difficult, but I'm advocating. And luckily for me, I found Yusuf Shakiri, who was fighting for Solomon. And he embraced me into the world of advocacy. He told me there is something we can do. He showed me I have a voice and that I can speak and tell Jordan's story and that it was preventable and that I do have the tools. I do have the knowledge, and he gave me the strength to see that. I worked in brain injury as well as developmentally disabled most of my life. So I see a plan. I see a program and things that worked for my son because I stayed beside him for a very long time. But I don't see that our government is actually taking these into consideration. And I don't want people thinking it's okay, well, our kids are just going to jail. They need to know that they're low staffed, they're thrown in terrible places, and can very often come back out more traumatized and worse of humans than they ever have been if they never went. We need to keep Stop pulling people out of the river. We need to walk up the river and find out why they're falling in
Mm.
and share that love with each other so that we can do that. We have a network in healthcare.
And healthcare in Ontario provincially is not under the same umbrella as federally. So they run their own system. It's not under what, OHIP? Well, it's OHIP, but
It is OHIP, but it is a privately funded doctor that oversees all the correctional facilities as well as their
One guy.
one.
what?
And he only goes in once a week and only sees certain things in certain units. And the psychiatrist is the same thing. And when they go off on vacation, there is nobody that replaces them. They go with nobody. And the big
Oh.
fear.
This is a level of negligence that is just beyond believability. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. One fucking doctor for the entire province.
Now, I have a client who is an RN in Gravenhurst. I actually probably shouldn't even say. And she knows the whole system. We were talking about it a couple weeks ago.
I need a Kleenex. Sorry.
Okay. We were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her questions like, well, she said, well, our system runs differently than the federal system. The provincial system, it's just, the checks and balances are not
Mhm.
under the same umbrella as our healthcare. So one of the advocacy things that you guys are looking for is to push healthcare being under the same umbrella. Is it not?
Absolutely. So that there's actually a provincial jail in BC where they've done trials of having the health units directly inside of the unit. So they have that accessibility. They can come together for different plans for people with social workers. And the outcomes have been astonishing with
Mhm.
people. And then they're not coming back because they have those tools that they need in society to thrive and to do well. In Ontario, we haven't done anything for our people. Like, we still let people out of prison in their shorts and t-shirts because they were arrested in the summertime but got released in the winter.
See, that's just cruel.
It is.
Jordan
Cruel.
was in remand. Jordan wasn't even
No,
in jail.
His
isn't even-
charges would have been thrown out because it wasn't his fault that the gun was there. His
Mm.
reaction, the fact that the gun was there.
So this is a death in remand. Like, this is a death in remand, which is like the little spot you go to before you go to court and get
Mhm.
before you're a prisoner, because he's not even a prisoner.
No, he's not even a prisoner at that point.
He should have been.
No, Narcan. Yes.
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 So there's a tremendous amount of negligence here. The ignorance and negligence, and probably doctors that are overworked, a healthcare staff that doesn't have the tools that they need to do their job correctly. And who's responsible for all of that in the province of Ontario?
Solicitor General.
Who doesn't seem to give a shit. Sorry.
Yes. It just seems like they keep pushing policing and corrections and enforcement and more staffing and stuff like that. But the more staffing they get in there, the more problems that they're having. 3 days ago, there was an article out about a gentleman who was released. He was running through the mall with a loaded gun, but the judge released him because they had beaten him so badly in jail that he was like, he can't do anything. His hand literally tied. So that young man has now been released. He's had no rehabilitation. He's had no therapy. Nobody's giving him guidance. I'm sure that there's a probation officer or something involved in his life, but we need to recognize what happened. Because I don't think
Was that
anybody,
hiding? Were they hiding it? Is that why they released him?
yeah,
The hiding
And
beat him so badly.
they
They
hid
released
it.
it.
They didn't put it in their notes. His lawyer had to drag up the videos of what happened. So when you think about all these kinds of things, I'm glad that they reduced his charges and all those kinds of things, but that's not going to help that young man long term,
No.
as he needs tools and rehabilitation. But correction is not correcting anything because there's just not enough people. There's not enough staff. They don't have enough private insight. They don't let people in, and they're just not using the networks around them. It's actually was documented several times that the communication between jails and hospitals is so tarnished that they don't even want to use their hospitals anymore.
Or they have ISIT come in and try this whole watching the Solomon Fukuri testimonies for 3 weeks was absolutely heartbreaking. I actually changed some of my work schedule so that I could sit and watch it. I could not believe what I saw, what I heard. And then I think watching that, and then I look at her and we'll just be talking. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my God, Jordan is dead.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my God. And then it just gives me, and he didn't have to. If all of this were run the way that it should be, and if you're going to run a penal system, then run it,
Mhm.
staff it, oversee it, different than they don't do with long-term care. They just leave the provincial jail system to their own. They do what they want. Watching that inquiry, this poor man who was schizophrenic and should have been at the hospital, and they know that, had him in seg. They hit him. They threw him in a jail cell. They put a spit hood on him after they pepper foamed him twice. And he died on the floor while 14 people were standing there going, what are we supposed to do? And they beat him too, by the way. Jordan is naked on a floor while they're pumping him full of gravel. He can't talk. No one's got any, there's no way for so-and-so to know what's going on with so, and he just came from the hospital. Does that person know? No, nobody knows anything in there. And it was like, he shouldn't have died. Period.
Mhm.
Period.
So there's a lot going on in here because we have a perfect storm of incredible and unfortunate events that lead one into another to create a terrible chain, a terrible sequence of events that could have only had one inevitable conclusion, which is someone's death. So we have someone that has a history of drug use, has a history of mental health problems. And we have a situation where COVID, terrible situations, heartbreak and other things, other stressors that are triggers. We're in a situation with COVID, so there's no access to resources and supports that are usually there, but supports that someone was depending on and seemed to be working at the time.
Yes.
Then we have a situation where I do not, this part was not clear to me, but I'm guessing here, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that when he was staying with you and then went to live with his father, so there was something that was happening at home that was making your other two children particularly unsafe or at risk, and you were protecting them as well?
It was Jordan's decision to go there because he wanted to stay away from the environment of the drugs being easily accessible.
Okay. So he went to his father's thinking he would be safer there. Turns out he wasn't. And then comes a situation where his father wants to retrieve some property that belonged to him. When he does that, there's a gun there. Jordan acts to try and protect his friends by removing the gun from where it is. He gets tangled up in something. He gets brought to jail, not as an arrest, but as a remand, just detained. And then where the health system should have kicked in rather than the correctional system, because at this point there is nothing to correct.
Mm-hmm.
The health system doesn't quite work, but there's a decision being made that given that it's COVID and the health system is not there, that the safest place for him is in an incarceration facility, because at least there is supposed to be some access to some medical services.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is warned that there's a situation that might involve drugs and that he probably does have drugs on him.
Okay,
Well, not on him, in him.
And
Yes.
He is scanned with scanners, so there is some equipment. Yes, that equipment
Wow.
is not fail safe in any way, shape, or form, and there is better equipment available, but nothing has been done from the province to make sure that there's better and more reliable equipment there. Because I've been reading up on this, so it's far from perfect. The people that are on staff at the time, there's nobody there that has strong expertise in being able to read the scans. Now, he was scanned when he came in the first time, then goes to the hospital. They release him, and he was scanned again
Yes.
when he was released from the hospital, and they didn't notice anything the second time.
That's right.
He is in the cell. He is exhibiting behavior that is consistent with someone that is having an overdose, snoring, for example, and trying to evacuate what it is that is in him. Nobody can recognize those signs. I'm guessing that with a lot going on, there may have been some what people might call acting out and maybe some violence, and they were trying to protect themselves, so they tried to sedate him with Gravol, which is contraindicated in this case, and then he dies. Wow. There is a lot of points along that whole journey where one better decision or one person with the right expertise at the right time could have made a call that could have prevented this.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what's going to lead to the inquest.
Yes.
yes.
And you have been made aware of a similar situation with another family. Yes. And that's the Fakiri family you have mentioned. And they had a son named Solomon, who was about 30 years old at the time, so not much older than your own son at this time, who was also suffering from mental illness, schizophrenia, different type of mental illness, because with your son, we're talking about a brain injury.
Yes.
And I'm personally familiar with schizophrenia because my mom suffered from it. And it's, when you're having a psychotic episode, it is, a way that a doctor explained it to me is that there could be a paper bag in the room and you don't see a paper bag, you see a foaming dog barking that looks like it's going to threaten you, and you're trying to fight that away. And anybody who gets in your way, you might be violent because you're trying to protect yourself or trying to protect your child. If you haven't, so that was the case with my mom. She was trying to protect me, but they're not seeing the same reality you are seeing. And he is brought in to, ironically, the exact same facility where your son
Yep.
was brought afterwards.
Yes.
And clearly there was probably some violence going on right there. So they beat him, they put a spit mask on him, they sedate him, and all that similar set of consequence. That family reaches out to you,
Yes.
I assume. You get some good support there, but you follow the inquest, I'm guessing, to try to get an idea of what an inquest is and what it is that you'll go through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you realize, not from anybody in the system, not anybody that had compassion and empathy towards you, but that's when you realize that there's a huge chunk of the story that you might have been missing.
Yes.
Oh,
Massive chunk of my story that I am completely missing.
And that you still don't know, I would assume.
I still don't know.
I'm
Oh, man.
and not in the video of Jordan's death. During the inquest, they show everything with Solomon. They showed his death. They showed everything. They showed everything.
The actions leading up to his
All
death,
the actions leading up to his
beating,
death. Everything.
everything.
I'm more worried for her when
Yeah.
that time comes. I have to say, her lawyer, I met him actually when we did, what was it? The
Prisoner's Justice Day.
Justice Day. And he is the most wonderful human being. It's like both of you all wrapped up in the cutest little lawyer who just, he actually came down for that I have pictures of them hugging. It's like he's hugging his daughter. Like
Mm.
he is just the most incredible human being. It just, I really struggle with what's going to happen and when it happens.
I going down that path. You know now that if you attend the inquest and you decide to stay for that portion, that you are going to see everything.
Mhm.
I can't even imagine. Uh, assuming in the same shoes, I'd almost rather be surprised than know that it's coming. How it's so trite to ask the question, how are you feeling about this? How are you what's going on inside that's coming? And I know that there's no way you can be prepared, but
Uh, I really,
what is that moment? Are you looking forward to that moment because you would rather know, even though it's going to be very hard?
yeah.
Or are you just afraid that it might be too much?
I want 100% to be the first eyewitness to fully see the video. Not, I know that it's going to hurt me, but I can't allow it to be unseen. I need to know. Like I have to have that justice in my heart that I've seen, and I'm speaking from a heart of somebody that acknowledges what really happened with Jordan, and from a place of experience and essentially being there. I do feel like I've been there with him in many spiritual ways, that he has taken me through that path of what he might have been feeling like. I know that Jordan would have called out for me. We were extremely close. I was his caregiver for a very long time, as well as his mom, and he was considered me one of his best friends. Our bond together has really taken me through a lot, but I got to say that he pushes me in directions of caring for others and loving people. And I think I do so much for the homeless, for people that are still stuck in the web of substance use disorder, testing drugs for the poison drug supply. I am right now currently on one of the biggest projects I have ever done, and it will be released tomorrow. I've been working with a bunch of politicians to open the armories to those who are suffering with homelessness as a warming center and as a facility for them to connect with social services, safe supplies, safe whatever we need to do for them. Because sometimes getting them out on the streets right now is becoming a bit of a problem, and finding them sometimes is very difficult. I've also got another little initiative that I've been doing, is triaging people and visiting them in the community, but I'm giving them special band-aids. And the special band-aids are getting recognition when they go into the hospital. And these are my Jordan moments. These are the moments that make me want to cry, because I feel so happy that I can give to other families that my son didn't have. And all these little moments that I do these things just brings me closer to him. I really feel these little initiatives do for us and for everybody around me.
And she doesn't stop. Like she's like me. She's got a crappy back. Can't. And both of us are just like walking 50-year-old invalids. But her is absolutely like I can't. She's everywhere. She's everywhere.
So my little band-aids go into these clients, go in with a band-aid. They've had an overdose and they would normally be treated really crappy. And they'll say to me, that nurse seen my band-aid with Jordan's life on it and your date that you put on the, because I like to date all of my band-aids and stuff. So if somebody else finds it, they know when it needs to be changed. I don't know. It's one of my little things that I do. I've always done it in my position. But now that they see this little Jordan's life, symbol that I'm putting on their band-aids, they're treating them a little nicer. They're just, that's a little thing, but that little story, it warms my heart. So those are the things that I'm trying to do to get prepared for the inquest, is to keep my heart warm, open, acknowledging. I do acknowledge that it was probably hard on the nurses, the doctors, other things that were going on, and people that were involved. But I also understand that if we do not target negligence and deal with it right at the forefront, that it's somebody else that's going to suffer. And I don't want it to happen to anybody else. I want us to all know that we have other avenues. And if you call for police, ask for a mental health officer. Don't just accept a regular officer. If you don't have a mental health officer, okay, thank you. I will call Canadian Mental Health Association. There is other options for people. And I've been really close with all these families and watched people be shot. I watched Ijaz Chowdhury be shot on his balcony. And his family called 911. I just so happened to be there. It was right after Jordan died. I was at Walmart that day. I was not well. I seen the police surround the building. I walked over with a very angry soul that these people were targeting this man that seemed to be having a mental health issue. They shot him. So I knew the family because I was right there when things happened. I did those rallies. And from Yusuf and from the movement of all that, we have really put together a lot of family members. And some of the stories are unbelievable. We don't recognize the negligence that is out there because these stories are front line in the news. People stigmatize corruption. They stigmatize substance use disorders, and they stigmatize mental health. So I want to talk about absolutely everything that people stigmatize.
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah. Now, when a situation like this happens, there's usually one of two options. And you mentioned that you wanted to keep your heart open because your heart can harden.
Yes.
When this happens, you can go another path. And you're reaching out, you're helping, you're trying to raise awareness, you're doing things to honor the life of your son. But you also want change in the system. So you have the inquest, but you've also started up a legal case.
Yes.
Lawsuit. I was wondering if you could talk about that, please.
Absolutely. I've actually had an original lawyer, but the lawyer that I originally had was hired by the coroner's panel a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember, but the coroner's panel hired 50 lawyers to help speed along inquests. It has not worked as of yet. People are still waiting an exceptionally long time. So my original lawyer abandoned me, and that is where I found Kevin Egan, which has, like she said, that I hugged him. It's like he's hugging his daughter. When I hug him, it's like I'm hugging my father. Like the utmost. I even think it's more respect for that man than you could even have for your own father. He has put himself out there and done so many things. He has taken on my case in recognizance of him winning. And I can't even believe he's taken it on. I don't want the money. That is not what I'm doing it for. I've actually, my lawyer, he can keep it, and whatever is left over, he can donate it to the Mental Health Association, because I believe what we're doing is for the greater good of the next generation of people. And that's where my focus is. So we are suing essentially for 1.5 million, but there is other things coming up as well that will be added into those lawsuits.
All right. Now, the Fakiri family needed to wait nearly 7 years
Yes.
between the death of their son and their inquiry. Is your timetable faster?
No, no, I do not believe it's going to be any faster.
Oh
Uh,
my.
In fact, I'm suspecting that mine might be a little slower because of the way that the system is working. Now I push the system and push the system and push the system, and I have been at Parliament and I've talked to many people. So I am quite sure that if anybody they'd like to get rid of would be me. So I'm hoping that my persistence helps bump that up a little bit.
Be a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
she's a wolf because she's being very like sweet, right? But she can be like, she's very intelligent. She reminds me of a mini you, Douglas. She knows everything about law. Justice, like, like I guess.
don't know everything.
Yes,
I
you
don't
do.
know.
Well, yes, you do. And yeah, persistence. Yeah, that's your middle name now. Persistence.
So how long has it been since God,
Since-
it's finding the words that are respectful. How long has it been since he died?
Jordan died June 1st, 2020. So it's been 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
you have at least, if it's going to take as long as the Solomon Inquiry, at least 4 more years to go.
Yes. Figure I'm
Mhm.
about,
Pardon, we didn't hear that.
I said, I figure I'm about halfway there.
Oh my.
Wow.
In the people that you have sought out politically, not legally, but politically, has there been anyone that has appeared to do more than just lip service or say, oh, that's a terrible thing? And, like, has anybody seemed to have been motivated to push the rock with you?
Gord Johns has been a very solid standby. I know that he comes from BC, but he has pushed Bill C-216 in Parliament. He has also gotten me and the other moms from Mom Stop the Harm meetings with Jagmeet Singh.
Oh yes.
And I met Carolyn Bennett. I've met Yara Zaks. I have met, they're all good supporters. I'm not sure I want to mention all the bad supporters because I just haven't won their hearts yet. And I figure on the path to doing so, I'm hoping.
That is wise.
Mr. B.
Oh, I've had a lot of fights with Mr. B.
We don't like Mr. B over here. So.
I call him
we're-
a pew. I have requested his time multiple times. I have had other political leaders request his time for me. He has denied me in every aspect, as well as all of us as a group of Moms Stop the Harm. We are always out there trying to talk to people, try to rationalize, trying to let people know that we're educated and we have the science, we have the resources and the backing to show people what we know.
I just looked up when you mentioned Bill C-216. It was introduced in Parliament November 22nd, 2021. It's an act to amend the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act and to enact the Expungement of Certain Drug-Related Conventions Act and the National Strategy on Substance Use Act, and it did not pass second reading.
It did not.
No. First reading was
It did not.
15th,
But-
2021.
Parliament.
Pardon,
Just-
could you repeat that? Your voice cut out a bit.
Last year, I went to Parliament to talk to them about the fact that it did not pass the year previous. This year, I will probably plan to go back. It will not be back up again until I think it's 2025 that they're allowed to re-vote on that one. But there's other questions that the NDP has pushed for me and continue to push. And reading my speeches in Parliament has been
They read her speech in Parliament.
huge honor that they have used my words and my story as part of a foundation to what structure they're looking for in the future. Jordan's life actually stands for we're justifying our rights to defense against national stigmas, learning initiatives, and futuristic ethics. So that is a little bit about the encompassment of everything. Like, I think I've got mental health, I've got the homeless, I've got poverty, I've got ODSP, I've got disabled, brain injury. I think I've got them all in that loop, because when you think about mental health, we all just think of somebody with maybe bipolar or schizophrenia, but it's a lot more than that. It's depression, it is anxiety, it is many things that really hit home for a lot of people, and people are scared to talk about it. So I want to talk about all those things that stigmatize people and make them afraid.
Okay. I am looking at the vote on the ourcommons.ca site, and the vote on that bill was 71 yay, nay 248.
Yes.
All the Conservatives voted against.
Of course.
All the Bloc Québécois members voted for. All the NDP members present voted for. The Green Party members voted for. The Independent member voted for. And among the Liberals, only 14 voted for. 131 voted against. Which
And I
really
think too, with
surprises me.
the fact between the Liberals and the Conservatives, I think, because I've met a lot of them, they're just scared.
No
They're
one wants to
scared to
take
put
this
the
on.
vote on. They're
Yeah.
scared to take it on. And I keep saying, but we're up to 42,000 people that have died from a toxic drug supply. We are up to 71,000 people that have either frozen to death or died on the streets because they couldn't get care.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's just
Health into there, and just police encounters. So then you've got another 1,535 people, just police encounters and incarceration. When you look at an encompassment of 100 and something people per year in incarceration, I don't even know what the numbers went up. Last year it was 21,000. This year it's 42,000. So we went up 22,000 people in 1 year died from over the toxic drug supply and an overdose that wasn't responded to quick enough. But this actually floods into all of us. I don't know if you've heard, but going to the hospital is extensively long wait lines. There is a shortage of all these different areas. So when you look at poverty getting to the point of these manifested illnesses, mental health that's manifesting, all these bad environments of living on the streets, and all these things that exacerbate their illness, we aren't helping ourselves by not helping them. We're actually hurting each and every single one of us, and every single one of us have an objective, I think, or should have an objective
To help every human.
to help every human. And one of my favorite stories, I'm not a huge biblical fan, but one of the verses out of the Bible that I read often is, when I was thirsty, did you give me water? When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I had no home, did you give me shelter? When I had no clothes, did you give me clothing? And when I was in prison, did you visit me? That's the last line in that verse. When I look at all the Christians going into their mosques and to all their religious places, I think you walked by that homeless man. Jesus needs disciples, not people to pretend and wear fancy clothes in church, because those aren't the people that are going to be accepted into the next kingdom. And if you are so religious, then that would be the biggest part of your soul, would be to make sure that you can get to that kingdom.
And we're not religious.
I'm not at all
We're not
religious,
religious, but it just
but I
sits.
actually have had some real mingling with churches refusing to help. And I bring this up. Like, why would you refuse? Why would you deny a mother that's grieving? I'm screaming to you, I need your help. I need your guidance. Please help me. And you refuse to talk to me because my child died in prison. Well, talk about you now, because my child died in prison and you wouldn't speak to me. You denied me the right to have that spirituality helped me through those moments. Luckily, I got hospice and yelled and screamed and said, we need people that have been suffering through these traumatic deaths. We need our own place. We're not accepted in hospice. We're not here. Everybody looks at us like we're crazy because we need support. So now we have our own support groups, and Mom Stop the Harm has their support groups for substance use disorder in places where we feel safe, because ultimately there was nowhere.
Yeah, I see that. Mr. Grizzly, do you have a question?
You're talking about how all the Conservatives voted against. Pierre Poilievre will not give you the time of day.
Adds
Churches-
color and texture to his whole, we're going to create centers and bring our loved ones home safe.
You talk about churches who wouldn't take you in when you were a mother who was suffering because your son died in prison. Now, this may be controversial, and I might piss a lot of people off when I say what I'm about to say. But I call it as I see it, and here's how I see it. A large group, a large contingent of that political spectrum probably feels, well, he got what he deserved. Because
Ta-da.
he's a drug user. While they go to the pub and drink their faces off, which, by the way, is a fucking drug.
Mm-hmm. It's a controlled substance.
Mm-hmm. It is. I don't care what anybody... Look, I like a pint of Guinness. I like a glass of whiskey, and I like a glass of wine.
Me too.
I know that they're drugs. They are. It's poison. It's mild poison. So they'll sit there and stare down their nose at you and what happened to your son because, well, that was an illegal drug. That's the whiskey.
He deserves it. He hooped it. He brought drugs into rehab.
That's the attitude. It's like instead of, and as you both know, and Mr. Beaver, you know this too, it costs us more as a society to not help people. It costs us more as a society to let what happened to your son happen. It costs us more. It costs us emotionally. It costs us financially. And conservatives who are all about fiscal conservative, and these people are not that. They're Reform Party, evangelical, right-wing Christian zealots. It's what they are. And go ahead, call me out if you want. I don't care. I'm calling it as I see it. Because if they were fiscally conservative, if they were truly fiscally conservative, they would have had instituted a UBI years ago. They would have increased funding for healthcare, for mental health, for drug abuse. They would improve systems that get people on the street and back into society if they were true fiscal conservatives, because it costs us less money to invest in humanity.
Absolutely.
It costs us less money.
That was Blue Jacket Guy.
But it does. It's true. It costs us less money. So if you're a true fiscal conservative, invest the damn money into systems that will make people live healthier, more productive lives. And guess what? The money comes back to you.
And as you said, that will equip people. So once they have, if they fall into a pitfall, as many of us do in life, because
Life is hard.
yes, that you have the tools once you get out of that hole that you're in to be able to go back and be a productive, contributing member of society, not someone who's prone to relapse or to fall into the next hole.
And another
Um,
thing about
yeah.
people is, how do you pick and choose the value of a human being? Do we? When somebody is born with congenital heart defect and needs 7 surgeries before they're 1 year old, do we choose that life is not valuable?
Mm-hmm.
That person will never contribute to a society. When somebody's born with spinal bifida, do we
Down
give up with somebody with Down syndrome, autism? Do we give up people?
We do, unfortunately.
Well,
We
to
sure
a
don't.
certain degree, yes, there is more program. Definitely a whole lot more we can do for those people.
That's a whole nother level of.
But that's a whole nother level. But we don't give up. We don't discard them. What we are doing with somebody that has made a choice to be at a party That was a lot of fun. And
Oops,
then
one
their
time.
whole entire life is now destroyed.
My son, I'm just going to say it, my son on a party drug.
Mm.
And yeah, it was fucked.
Mm.
And he's a normal kid. He has a normal job. He drives a normal car. He's like a normal kid. But you're not a normal kid until you're one bad drug away, or the only adults I know that are my age that do so many street drugs. It's
Mhm.
ridiculous. It isn't just the kids,
No,
but
it's really not.
unfortunately, it's the kids that are dying. That's who we can't save. How many have they found? How many did they track this year? Was
Well,
it
it's up to 42,000 now
that are dead
that have died.
in jail?
Oh,
No,
in
that-
jail is
jail.
57 this year.
5,700?
107. No, 57 people.
People. Okay.
And then 107 across Canada.
Right.
And then 1,535 is what we've tracked so far through Tracking Injustice. I've been part of that project with Lindsay Jennings and Alex McCleveland from Carleton University.
Mhm.
I've been working on those projects as well as finding those numbers, because before that project, nobody knew.
There were people dying in prison. People didn't even know they died. There's no
No.
record. There's no nothing.
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 There's nothing. There's zero. So finding the information about these people's deaths is a daunting task for that whole task team. And even to find the 1,535 that we have found, or that they have primarily found, is astonishing, because there's more out there. We just haven't found them yet. There's no news articles. There's no leads to them. It's just a matter of waiting for family members to stumble across something and say, oh, well, my son's name's not in there and he died.
He's dead.
Mhm.
Nobody knows. These numbers are not available.
Our time is almost up, so I'd want to ask you two final questions. You mentioned something about an initiative that you've taken on to try to convince armories to be remained open.
Yeah.
Could you tell us
So-
more about that? And have people been receptive?
So far, I have sent out several emails and things like that about the idea and the objective that I was going through. I didn't exactly tell people that I've fully done this. I am going to launch the position either later on tonight or tomorrow morning. And that's when people will recognize that it is something that is happening. It was talked about, but now we put it in action. I am working with a politician or an ex-politician and some people that work at the armories to give me the inside scoop of what information that I was needing. There is more than 400 beds there that would match up to the standards of the 20 by 20 square footage area that the Toronto board says that you have to have so much space per person. They have kitchens there, multiple fridges, toilets, bathrooms, showers. I can't even imagine a better place. It's heated already by the government. And they've done this before. It was done a couple of years ago in extreme cold. And I think as a humanitarian effort, we have done so much for so many people and so many things around the world. It's time that we step up a little bit. And just these little tiny initiatives that are massive, they're going to make a massive difference. And our people are going to really make them feel like they're human, you know?
Yeah.
I need them to know that they matter. And I could put posters up all over the internet, and it takes 10 seconds. But I'm going to go downtown, and I'm going to put posters up downtown, because the homeless population there are not going to see it online.
Yeah. Right.
But they're going to see those signs, and they're going to say, oh, somebody cares about us. Somebody's thinking about us.
You're actually going to go there and tell them to go to the armory,
Yes.
which she is getting open.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Yeah.
I'm going to lobby for it. I'm going to do the very best I can. And it's going to be a stressful couple of days, but I am just going to keep pushing.
I think that's a wonderful idea. When the petition's ready, please make sure that we have it. We'll circulate it to our kids to make sure to get some signatures for you for that.
Well, there's an
Excellent.
armory in downtown Ottawa. There's an armory in downtown Hull, formed, Gatineau. Like they're maybe a 15-minute drive apart. So, we've got the space. Come on, it's Canada. We've got the space.
Is so much space, and we're heating these buildings. We're doing so
Yeah.
many things.
Well, put people in it.
Yeah, and we might as well bring those people in to where we can see them,
Mhm.
get social workers, get them to a system where they're waiting for housing and not just scrolling through trying to find somewhere that maybe rent a room. Get them in with these programs that can find them these sustainable things for their lives to get them not only off the streets, but continuously doing better in their lives and being able to escalate in society instead of falling through those cracks.
Right. Okay, for my final question for you, Jordan's mom. After everybody has listened to all of this, what is it that you want them to retain, to remember when they turn off this podcast? What is the thought or the motivation or the action that you want them to go into their day with?
I want you to remember how important your children are. And when you call 911, that you can ask for a mental health officer. You can ask for those redirections. And if it's not available, then you have every right to call Canadian Mental Health Association, the hotline, whatever it is. But do not accept officers to come to the door that are not trained, do not understand the logistics. And if you can keep your child out of jail,
Please.
do it. Don't shy away from the lawyers. Figure out what's going on and what's really happened with your child, because nobody grows up and thinks that they're going to disobey the law or be homeless or these things. So something has happened and we need to figure that out and not let them fall in that stream continuously. Let's help them through those traumas.
All right. Jordan's mom, Leanne, thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you for trusting us with this.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been an honor to see you guys.
Yeah.
It's been great.
You have our hearts. It's just, wow.
I'm going to have to. So this is being recorded, and it's going to air on Friday morning. I won't be posting anything about the recording until Mr. Beaver has had a chance to create a trigger warning, because we are going to have to put a trigger warning with this, because your story is a gut punch and it needs to be heard, but we don't want to shock anybody. We'll let them know that if this show could be troubling for you, it could be triggering. This is what it's going to talk about. We hope you can watch it. We understand if you can't, because it's too much for some people. And I don't get mad at people for that. We all know what our limitations are. But I'm hoping as many people as possible can view this and share the story and let people know that we can make the change. You're doing it.
We can every
We can.
day.
Right.
But we are some fancy shit when we need to be.
Oh, I know.
we do. And Leanne, thank you for showing such a great example of friendship and support.
Bye.
All right. Wishing you a most lovely evening.
You
And
too. You guys are okay after hearing all that. Very heavy.
Yeah.
we'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
Yes, but our platform's yours. If you need to come back for something, if you have a development, if there's something going on, if something's not going fast enough and you need to come on and try to light a fire under someone, our platform's yours. You always have a home here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Right.
I love you too.
But- Big
Take care.
Big hugs.
Bye.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm going to need a drink after this. That was really heavy, dude. I'm fine. I don't know. I don't know that I would be able to carry on the way she does. I don't know that. I don't know that because I've never been in that situation.
It's the motivation of helping that does it.
Yes,
Making that turn.
And out of this horrible tragedy, some triumph is coming, because she's doing the things necessary to make the world a better place for others.
I have energy, just that feeling you get when something's a lot. And all we did was hear it and provide a
Yeah.
platform.
That's it.
And that energy is all over my body, and like my heart rates up, and is living it with it day to day, going out and it's like, I'm going to start a petition. I'm going to try and create an armory thing. I'm retaining a lawyer. I'm going to go and watch the inquiry from this other family. I'm going to, yes. When that is your heartbeat, when it becomes your heartbeat, I just can't imagine. I have had the good fortune of never having had to experience anything like that. Touch wood. And I hope I never have to
God.
be totally honest. But
I know a lot of individuals who have stories that are of a similar nature of what their children have gone through. Not nearly as bad, but I know, friends of mine who, I don't have children. I never will. I'm 55 years old. I'm not going to start having kids now. And Bridget has 2 kids. But I do know people my age who have gone through some tough times with their children, and how things turned out for them was different than it was for Angela and Jordan's mom. Sorry, it's Jordan's mom is, I think, what she prefers, correct?
yes.
Thank you. So out of that tragedy will come some goodness. And I know friends, like I said, who've struggled and faced circumstances similar, but not nearly as difficult as what she's faced, in and out of rehab, and were able to turn their lives around. Didn't have a TBI, traumatic brain injury. Didn't get neglected by the system or left behind by the system. They were lucky enough that their kids were able to come through the other side of it. And I'm sorry, man, I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now. I'll never be a father. I'll never be a parent. So I cannot begin to imagine what those emotions are like. I'm standing outside the circle looking in, and it affects me. And I can only imagine the thoughts and feelings and emotions that a parent would feel for their child while they were suffering through something like that, let alone lost their child to it. It's
Yeah. I'm going to leave the kids with some phone numbers if you need some help. The
put them in
kids
the
help
chat.
phone.
No, I can't. There's no chat. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's no chat.
The kids help phone is 1-800-668-6868. And to text, you text the word connect to 686-868. So 686868.
1-800
668-6868. That's the kids help phone. 8 is available if you need some crisis. You're in a suicide situation, for example. And according to Canada.ca, there's also a group called Wellness Together Canada to connect with a mental health professional one-on-one. And that's 1-888-668-6810 for youth, or you text the word wellness to the same number, 686868. And for adults, that's 1-866-585-0445, or text the word wellness to 741-741. For First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, the Wellness Helpline, toll-free, is 1-855-242-3310.
What was the one for adults again, my friend?
For adults, 1-866-585-0445, or text wellness to 741-741.
Hang on, I'll just put that in.
All right. Kids and Cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, because as hard as this is, we do love making this for you. We love it when we have an opportunity to present something important. And I think this definitely qualifies. Remember, sharing is caring. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. If you do not want to miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. You can go to our Podpage site, podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters, all in one word, with a hyphen, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And that's where you can go to subscribe and make sure that you do not miss an episode. When it's fresh off the bandwidth, we will have it for you. The QR code that just appeared is what you scan if you're watching. If you would like to support us in other ways, go to our YouTube page, make like Kit Elaine, and click on share and subscribe. We thank you very much for doing that. And if you'd like to support us and encourage us to do more, our coffee page is at ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. I'm sure Mr. Grizzly will put the QR code up there for you to scan if you're watching. Also, another bit of information, according to parliament.ca, the 14 Liberal MPs who did vote for C216 are Jenica Adwin, Michael Coteau, Julie Dershowitz, probably. I might be pronouncing that wrong. Nathaniel Erskine Smith. No surprise there.
No.
Andy Fillmore, Marc Garneau, who is no longer an MP, Brendan Hanley, Joel Lightbound, Wayne Long, Heather McDonald, Soraya Martinez Ferrada, Ron McKinnon, and Michael McLeod. If they are running again in next election, give them your vote. Give them your vote. You have some good MPs there. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your eager beaver saying it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind and gentle with yourself, because democracy is something that you do. Write some letters. This might be a good topic to write something on. Ask for a meeting. Write your media. Do go get your shots to keep our hospitals unclogged in case somebody needs them for crisis intervention. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom for our kids and cubs?
I got nothing right now, man. I'm just count every day as a blessing. That's about it. That's all I got, man.
All right. And kids and cubs, exceptionally, I think that this is a good note on which to end it. We will not have an Easter egg. We'll just go out like this.
We'll see you.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.